I'll load up the extra oyster catchers onto the pallets on land and finish reconstructing the living shoreline. But it was, in the end, it was a successful event. We got rave reviews about it. And right now, we've seen over time with those depth profiles, a lot of sedimentation behind the reef. We see a lot of birds feeding on, lots of crabs. Fish swimming around. I just saw mullets just come out of the water. And as you can see, there's some crab buoys, crab traps set out there too, which I'm sure they're catching a lot of crabs. Judy, do you have anything to add?
I would just say this particular manufacturer, he'd always done the castles like what you saw at Beckwith. They'd never done something that was kind of a long running array. And so part of this was experimental, and the manufacturer was actually here on site when we did this to kind of see the issues we were having with trying to get them all to fit together in that long kind of running manner where it looks like one solid unit versus the breakup of the individual castles. So again, when we're doing these, we really look at adaptive management sometimes on the fly as we're doing it, because we know what our intent is. We know that it needs to break these waves down. That was the biggest driver behind this. It can still do it in the array that it's in, but I will tell you, we would never go back and try to put something that is 20 feet wide by 50 feet long, again, because these particular ones, while the manufacturer felt like we could pull it off, given the little divots and all in the sediment, those blocks have to sit pretty darn flat for it to work. So it just, part of this is testing out the different techniques and how they'll work and where they'll work, so that when we use them in the future, we do it well. We do it as well as we can, and we share that information with our partners, so that if they take this technique on, we'll say, well, think about using them in this area because you may have issues with this. So again, it's a learning process as we do some of these, and thankfully Weeks Bay is all about learning and helping us with the monitoring and the science and putting these plants out. Some of these clusters of plants have probably been here for at least a year and a half, the bigger clusters. And when they first went in, I had my doubts of whether they were really going to survive, because they were pretty small, like this one in front of you, Congressman. And over the past year and a half, we've seen them flourish. I have no doubt that these reefs are effectively breaking the wave energy and allowing these plants to take hold. So I think it's only going to help build up these things of having a vegetated shoreline. We do like to have breaks between our reef segments. We want the water flushing. The idea is not to put another wall out in the water, just not having it like a seawall on land. We want the breaks between to allow for that water flushing in and around for the health of the system. And it also helps with the sediment transport that we've seen here on shore. At some point, it'll get to the point where it's not going to be able to trap much more sediment because it will have kind of filled up. But that's okay. For what the objectives were for this site, that's what we were looking for.
Do the blocks move around then?
No, the top one sometimes in a big storm will pop up a little bit, and you'll see where they've settled a little bit. In some cases, it's the bottom moving around a little bit, and the one corner will settle, and it'll.
But then it'll fall over and start washing out.
No.
Is it too heavy?
Nope.
They interlock too.
Yeah,
Kind of like Legos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They
And
interlock.
so the top part that you're seeing is upside down. They kind of have prongs sticking up on the end, and on the very top one, you flip it over and lay it in to kind of lock it in. Each one consecutively locks in as it goes, and then the top one locks it in.
They haven't had to make it through the top of the storm yet.
They've been through, was it Isaac? Or, no, this came in after Isaac. So no, they've not. They've been in other areas. Our offices in the Carolinas, North Carolina specifically, has used these. And they've been through storms over there and not had any issues with them. Obviously, we monitor annually anyway. If we had a storm event that we thought was anywhere near any of our reefs, we would be out there looking at it after that storm event to kind of assess what was going on.
What's the lifetime?
It's concrete. It's 20 plus years because it's a concrete structure. Now this area is low salinity most of the time. So where we call these things, people will call them oyster reefs. I call them reefs because they're not always oysters, and that's okay. in the end, if we have sea level rise effects, or if we have a storm that brings, salt water in, we could get larval settlement here. Is it high here right now? It's not, but we get a lot of mussels, we get a lot of algae, we get a lot of barnacles, and all of the other invertebrates that colonize that. Still acts just like a reef. It's just that the oyster densities are low. That's all right. In some of our other areas where we have fresh water, we actually have oysters growing on the mussels now. And it's been 2 or 3 years for that to kind of take hold and take place. Eventually, what will happen with these castles, Congressman, is that those all of the little fibrous filaments from the mussels will actually help cement them together, and we've seen that at some of our other sites with the reef balls, where now you couldn't let that out of the water if you wanted to. They've kind of cemented themselves together. So this again is only 2.5 years old or so we're really still kind of checking it out. But in the end, what you're not seeing below water is a lot more colonized than what you're seeing that gets that daily flushing of being exposed on the surface. If you walk behind the back of it, because of the sediment buildup, if you walk from here, it'll go deep, and then sediment will build up right behind the reef. So it might be, a foot deep, maybe. And then if you go on the other side, when we put them in, they were about 3 feet tall, and it basically fills up behind there. In Tombolos? Well, the sediment's building up behind those reefs. And if you walk into the passes, it would probably be another foot and a half deeper than it would be on the front side or behind, because that's where that water is moving through and kind of moving that sediment and keeping the circulation. It never becomes stagnant back here. We don't have dissolved oxygen issues or anything like that, because we want that water to move through the system.
It seems to be a lot more sand out here than you can go like a quarter mile down that way. It's really muddy.
Well, and it just depends on the system. Sometimes it'll capture the sand. I guarantee if you walked behind that foot, right behind the reef, we'd probably sink another 6 inches or so, because there are fines that are gathering and settling back there. The Swift Tract, and I think you had mentioned having been down there with your boat. If you hop out of the boat and you go behind the Swift Tract reef, we probably have somewhere around 24 to 26 inches of blocky sediment. I find it easier in sampling there to actually go on my stomach and crawl with my hands than to actually walk, because
I'm not going to do that.
Because anytime you want to, I can help you with it. There's a specific
I'll take
technique.
your word for it.
But there's probably, and it's all very flocky. It's not a sandy system. It's a very muddy system. So it's a lot of that mud and silt.
Where's your dig?
Yeah.